Why not turn it on until 2:30?
Right.
Shit might come on.
Your dad was in the service, you didn't tell me.
Because we don't really.
All right.
It was a long time ago, and he
It's
was
always
in the
a long time ago.
Well, it was between. He was in the reserves, I guess, the Army Reserve.
Yeah, yeah.
So he didn't really talk much about it. I do have a picture of him.
I have a candle for you also. So at the end, you light it whenever you go back home, or it will burn.
You don't want to sit. You don't want to sit with us.
You guys can put your phone on bench pretty well. You can so that the one
You don't know or you know? I don't know. Well, jump off the track.
or
No, we're staying at our new house.
what's his house?
I did till last night. Why don't we my rent shop? It's a big old house.
It's creepy.
Oh, she was having her. Oh, right. It's under that.
Hey, don't be smart.
It's okay. Yeah, I can see
Surprised we said anything got insurance. That's why they get taxed. What was the text, Jim?
What'd you text him?
Wise words.
The wise words, Jeff Warren, it's going to be cold tomorrow.
Yeah, he is on top of it. Maybe you should change his nursing to welcome around.
Oh, they're trying to say. I mean, especially a little boy. I'll be fine. No, I'm sure that
It's a little chilly out there in the graveyard, huh?
A little bit.
Couldn't read things up to there.
Yeah, we had the first service we had, it was frozen. And it took them a while. Generally because you got these big machines, but it just,
Yeah, you think so.
there was water and it froze for about this much, but I don't think they had problems with Bart wouldn't have wanted that.
Make them wait. Yes.
Right.
Is it time?
I got about 30 seconds. Boy, I got a good watch. My Fitbit.
I have also 30 seconds. But I think we can start.
Well, Bart was always early, so you might want this.
Right.
Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini balemot. Lachen samach libi, v'yagel kavodi, af besari, yishkon lavetach. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon us to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Death has taken your beloved Barton Breslin. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Bart's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gift of his heart and his mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more we give our thanks to God. Adonai roi lo echsar, binodeh sheyarbitzeni, hamei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni, v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech וגץ על מוות, לא ירא רע כי אתה עמדי. שבתך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צרוריי. תשענת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני, לאורך ימים. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We read in Ecclesiastes, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. We're all joining here today with friends and family to remember the life of Barton Breslin. At times like this, questions naturally arise in our minds, questions that trouble us, but to which we despair over our ever finding a satisfying answer. We are troubled by the questions that are left unspoken. Why does one person live so long and another die before his time? Why does one live a seemingly normal, pleasant life and another a sad and troubled existence? However, even as we ask, we know that these are questions to which there are no answers. They are problems which were not meant for us to solve. Our rabbis and our sages instituted Yizkor, the memorial service where we remember those who shaped our lives and shared our years. And although our tradition emphasizes memory, it is impossible to remember everything. What should we remember about Bart? Should we remember the sorrow of his passing or the joy that he found in living? Do we keep in mind the difficulties and the bitterness that occurs in the course of a lifetime, or the love and the understanding that we experienced and have come to understand throughout the years? We must be selective in our memories, looking back over the years and remembering the good things, keeping in mind the wonderful shared experiences and his qualities that added meaning and dimension to our own lives. We can affirm that the life of an individual has had a lasting impression on us, leaving us with thoughts that have shaped our lives and shaped our experiences, and now have enabled us to view the world with a different perspective. Bart was born and raised in Long Island, New York, where he met and married his beloved sweetheart, Bobby, with whom he shared 48 years of marriage. Soon after marriage, he and Bobby moved to Euclid, Ohio for a job in hardware sales, but that was very short-lived, and he quickly found a temporary position selling all-state insurance, which ultimately became his permanent lifelong career. He was also a member in the Kiwanis Club, where he held high-ranking positions, planned even their pancake breakfasts and outings and fundraising. When Beth was born, the family moved from Euclid to Beechwood, and after Michael's birth, they moved once again to Mayfield Heights because Bart and Bobby always wanted to live in the communities with the highest-rated schools, where Beth and Michael would receive the very best education, and that was so important to them. Though insurance sales required long hours, and Bart was often gone until 9 p.m., he freed up his weekends and always carved out family vacation time into his busy schedule. They traveled often to Florida to visit family. Bart hated the cold. He would have hated today. But Bobby loved it. They went camping. They went cruising, where the buffet line was always a big draw for him. But the real requisite for any vacation was to be near a golf course. He enjoyed golf more than any other hobbies and was proud of the first hole-in-one he shot in 1972 at Sable Palm Beach Country Club, and he was just 34 years old. But Bart was a man of many loves. Of course, his wife, Bobby, his kids, Beth and Mark. No, I'm not doing couples. Michael and Amy. I knew. His grandchildren, Brian and his Maddie, Matthew of blessed memory, Drew, Max, and Piper. He loved the Dodgers until they moved to California in '57, and he rooted for every Cleveland sports team, the Browns, the Indians, and the Cavaliers. He loved to eat at restaurants. Truthfully, I'm told he loved to eat, period. He was the king of coupons, and as long as the restaurant accepted the entertainment or all-around time discount coupon, he was good to go. His favorite was a Chinese buffet, and he'd even drive 40 minutes to find the best one, where the owners feared him, as Bart always ate more than his money's worth. He said even a bad buffet is a good buffet, as long as the food is plentiful and warm. If you knew Bart, you loved Bart, complete with his strong opinions, his sarcastic sense of humor, and his unfiltered speech. He made good friends along the way, and after Bobby's death, he found companionship with his dear Phyllis these past 10 years. Bart's demeanor was shaped by the family circumstances from which he grew, ones that shaped his outward personality, but underneath he was a man of great conviction, great caring, love, and compassion. He always meant well. He always did what was right, and in his heart, he knew it was in the right place. First and foremost, he cared and loved his family, and he wanted to leave a legacy for them. Beth prepared his favorite meals that he enjoyed at their home, and later that she would deliver to him. And Michael and he spoke at least 5 times a week, often talking about the latest cars or just to check in. Bart loved the times he could spend with family, especially his grandchildren, and he and Bobby were always so proud to see how well everyone in the family got along, because he knew too well that that isn't always the case with families. He recently told Beth, "I hope I did good by you and your brother." Bart Breslin did good by any standard and loved each and every one of you in his own unique way. Notably and inexplicably, the 7-day memorial candle which Mark and Beth lit for Matthew exactly 2 weeks ago burned continually for nearly 6 days after it should have extinguished. It finally burned out this week, one evening before Bart's passing, as if Matthew's soul was waiting for his grandfathers to join him and to protect him. He had Grandpa's back. May you be comforted by that thought, and may their memories always be a treasured blessing to you and to all who mourn. Amen. Michael, do you want to say a few words?
feels so much better. You know, my father could never resist the urge to speak in front of a room, so I kind of feel obligated, like I should. In fact, I was just thinking about that this morning. It was either my sister's wedding or my bar mitzvah where he took it upon himself to individually, in front of the room, thank everyone that drove from out of town. Single person, name by name, and he went through this whole list in his head, and he forgot his Aunt Martha. I don't think she talked to him for 5 years after that. So with that in mind, thank you all for coming, and thank you all for not coming if you're out there. We'll leave it at that. I had kind of an unusual relationship with Bart. Starting with Bart. Back when I was little, and Donnie, you'll remember this because you were there with us in Indian Guides, which I think is now politically unacceptable term, but I think that's what it was called back then. It was a father-son, weekly, monthly. We did things with our dads. They did things with their kids. Great time. We had a really lot of fun on that. But we'd be out on these campouts with hundreds of dads and hundreds of sons. And if you yelled dad, most of the fathers would ignore you because it wasn't my kid. And 30 would come running to you thinking it was their kid. So I started calling him Bart because then I could get a response. And he knew it was me. Now, he always told my sister it was just me being disrespectful. I don't know if he understood. We just thought different about things like that. To him, it was disrespect. To me, it was respect because I could get his attention when I needed him, and people knew my dad was Bart. So we were just wired different. But this one, you know, there's a reason I'll tell you while I'm walking through that way, and we'll get to that in a minute. Fast forward a couple more years, and this is more of how we were kind of just going in different directions. I had a book. I think it was middle school or high school. It was a Monty Python movie. It was illustrated, and it had a picture of, God forbid, a naked woman in it. Now, you can't have that in a public school, and it got confiscated. And I got called down to the principal's office, and of course my dad was sitting there. Dick, and he worked across the street from the high school, so it was an easy drive over to see what was going on. And he's sitting there. I walk in, the principal tells me to sit down, and he hands my dad this brown envelope, makes it look very ominous. You know, should have had big X's on it too, right? Make it look really, really trashy. It's a movie script. It was funny stuff. And he said, "We found your son with this." And my dad opened the envelope and pulled out the book and looked at it. He goes, "Yeah, we bought that for him." And he handed it to me in front of the principal and said, "Don't bring that to school again." I love that. I love the fact, you know, it turns out he and the principal were friends and were known to have a beer or two together after work. So I think that played into a lot of why I never got in trouble. But, you know, as much as we were different, by the way, he never found that Monty Python book funny at all, which was funny. We had very different senses of humor. As similar as it may have been, we were very different. But he had my back, and it was good to know. But we were still running in different directions. Fast forward a couple more years. This one was one that always, I think it's funny. And I think, John, I think you're watching. You're out there now. My roommate and I, you know, my dad loved football. He's missing the Super Bowl today. He missed the Ohio State game. He was in the hospital. I mean, this was not a good time for him, right? If this was going to happen, he should have pushed it off so he could have caught the games. I mean, he pushed everything else off to catch the games. I'm surprised he didn't pull this off. But, you know, the big Ohio State game coming up, and I called my dad, and I said, "Hey, John, my roommate and I, we're going to get on national TV during this game. Now, we may get arrested doing it, but we're going to get on national TV." I said, "Dad, what we're going to do is we're going to get gorilla suits, like full gorilla costumes. We're going to dress up as gorillas. We're going to storm the field and tackle the mascot in the middle of the game." And he said, yeah. He never much put a lot of credence in the dumb things I used to tell him because there was always a lot of dumb things. And we got on the field and tackled the mascot and we're on national TV. Somewhere I still have that on a videotape, I think. So we get done from the game. We go back to our apartment, and there's a little light flashing on an answering machine. That's funny because he still has an answering machine. I thought those things were all but dead. It's still one at his house right now. But I hit the button on the answering machine. It says, "Hey, I just saw two guys on TV dressed in gorilla suits. Somebody must have taken your idea." Never occurred to him that was us. Like I said, we were always just running in slightly different directions. This is coming to an end, and there's a reason I'm telling you these stories. So fast forward a couple years later, I'm on year 9 of college. So that's, you know, that's right. I was there for 12 years, all said and done. But at year 9, he could never quite get his head around why I was still in school. It wasn't costing him anything, so he couldn't complain a whole lot. Thank you for all of you. Your tax dollars paid for me to go to school. It was a beautiful thing. But for his birthday that year, I got him a T-shirt of me standing in front of my friend's bar. and the T-shirt said, "My son went to Ohio State for 9 years, and all I got was a stupid T-shirt." He loved that shirt. And I think at that day forward, he finally understood that he and I were different, but I was going to be okay. For a long time, the difference is, he and I, we are very different people. I always thought those differences were me rebelling. I always thought it was whatever my dad liked, I went the other direction. He loved sports, I couldn't stand sports. He hated engineers, I became an engineer. You know, I kind of did everything he didn't want. Except I think he finally figured out that I was going to do okay doing that. But what I think I figured out, and I think he figured out later, was Bart gave me everything he could, right? Everything that was him. You guys, anyone that knows him, we said this, Beth, you said that when we wrote the obituary. If you knew him, you kind of knew him. You got all of them. There's a lot of things he couldn't give me. It just wasn't him. I filled in those holes. So it wasn't that I was rebelling against him. I just completed everything else he gave me. So where am I going? This is good stuff. Excuse me. As I said a minute ago, if you knew my dad, you had it all. There was no partial Bart. It was 100% Bart. And if you were his friend, it's because he needed you to help fill in those pieces too. Thank you all. Rest in peace, Bart. Rest in peace, Dad.
Thank you for sharing that. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys that we yearn to share, we'll remember him. So long as we live, Bart too shall live, for he is a part of all of us as we remember him. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us is a good name endures beyond the grave, and that there is strength in faith. With Job we'd say, Adonai Natan, God you have given. You gave us Bart. He was a loved one that will never be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Now, Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken him away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and your love, as we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach, blessed be the name of God, now and forever. We ask you please to rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfer Shechina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezor Harakia Mazirim, Het Nishmat Leb Pesach Ben Lezer V'Golda Shahalach Le'olamo Bal Rachamim יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Bart Breslin, son of Louis and Goldie, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest truly now in peace. And let us all say, Amen. You may be seated. The family has requested any donations be made to the Hospice of the Western Reserve, and we will continue our service now out at Mount Olive Cemetery for the interment.
Anybody who's going to be a fall dinner? Anybody want to put this up?
Okay, we take the cows off the inside. Wash your hands.
You going to the cemetery? All right, we're just going to bring the casket up this hour, so you want to step out this way. And we found Pallbear's going this hour, and we'll bring the casket to you. You can go right up. Thank you. We're going to go right up.
Sorry.
Don't kill your phone. If you want to wait a second, I'm going to give you the candles and the flag and all that. And then, okay. Yeah, I'm going to do that. What car are you driving?
I'm in the very first one. My brother's got some big
All right,
car
right in the
with it.
first car. Here, I'll take that.
When's he going home?
He reckons it's Tuesday.
He's kind of big, this poor guy. I mean, he made arrangements to be here Tuesday to Tuesday.
Oh, because I know that
We
this
didn't
now
meet
is
in between.
right. He thought
And we'll
it
bring
was
out the candles.
Okay.
And we have a copy of it. So,
Thank you. Well, he was going home a little early because this was for the Tuesday at 8, so. It was taken out.